Hello.
Hey, how's
How
it
are you?
going?
Yeah,
That
good.
worked. Brilliant.
Awesome.
That's really good. So that's good. You're just on the side though, and let me see if I can flick you. Okay.
Trying to lean it on something. Awesome.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, that is really good. It's just like you're just next door, really.
It is.
It is. Well, thanks for joining today.
Yeah, nice to meet you in person.
Yeah, exactly. It's another one of these. We're friends, but Instagram, social media friends. We've never actually met, but we've kind of known each other for a while on each other's platforms and postings and so forth. But that's why I thought it'd be great to speak with you today, and also being a fellow Aussie. The English have had a fair go now, so I wanted to go down under it and meet a fellow friend down in Oz. So thank you for joining me today.
Welcome.
So if you wouldn't mind by starting off telling us about how did you become an aromatherapist? How did you get into aromatherapy? What was the first time that you went, I want to do this, more so rather than maybe just as a hobby? When did it first start?
There's probably been a few stops and starts for me. I originally fell in love with aromatherapy when I was pregnant with my son, and I was only 19 years old, and I employed I guess what would be known as a doula now, but basically she was a clinical aromatherapist who massaged me through my whole pregnancy, and then also attended my birth and used essential oils rather than any other pain relief in my birth. And it was in that really intense time, the body's so sensitive, that I realized just how powerful that the essential oils were. It was almost instantaneous. So if I had a cramp, for example, she would use a special blend that she'd created for me prior to me giving birth, and it would be gone within moments. If my contractions slowed down, again, the change would literally be within seconds. So from that point, I started studying when I just maybe about 6 months after that. And then I started massaging and using essential oils in my massage. Back then, that was pretty much the limitation of what you could do with essential oils in Australia. So I was working from a wellness centre. And I did that for quite some time. And gosh, many years, and worked at a lot of different wellness centres throughout Perth, primarily, so in Western Australia. I then took a little break because it became a little bit difficult to work as an aromatherapist in Australia with the big influx of multi-level marketing. So I started working in the spa industry, more from a managerial perspective, massaging in spas, but then moved into management because I thought that was the direction that I wanted to go. And then missed aromatherapy terribly. So came back to it.
Okay, wow. Well, it was interesting when you mentioned about the difficulty in Australia with practicing aromatherapy, because it's one thing that even though I am an Aussie from Melbourne, but I did my training in the UK, and I've never worked as an aromatherapist in Australia, so I don't even know what it's like, as far, if you know what I mean. Is that so? Have things changed at all, like over the years? Have they are they quite strict on practicing?
Funnily enough, now, no. So when I first started, there was a really great movement in aromatherapy, and there was a lot of excitement around the practice. And then we moved. Me for a moment.
That's right.
We.
Cool.
Yeah, there was a lot of excitement. Clinical aromatherapists were able to work in nursing homes, so they were quite respected in terms of other clinicians. We also brought in aromatic medicine, and that was a government-approved course. So internal use of essential oils was at one point recognised within Australia. It still is, but they've downgraded the level of qualification from an advanced diploma to what they call a skill set. And even more recently, in say the last 5 years, they have stopped giving health insurance rebates to clinical aromatherapists. So what that's meant is that people are no longer getting a professional qualification, a government recognised qualification. They're able to do a 3-hour course and call themselves a clinical aromatherapist, or as opposed to something like what I've done, which was 2 years and hundreds of hours in clinical hours. So there's been a big change in the last 5 years, and it has really affected the industry, I believe. We're not seen in the same regard as what we were, say, 10 years ago. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. It sounds like a similar thing in the UK has kind of crept in a little bit with that qualification issue. Not being as strict in that sense. But we have a question pop up on screen. I'm not sure if you can see that, Prashanti. That how do you see aromatherapy in the future? Do you think it will be more valuable or prescribed in hospitals, etc.?
In Australia, I don't think so. I can't see that in the near future. I've heard whispers and rumours that in the States there's a lot of research going on in university hospitals. So perhaps that might be something that will happen in the future. But again, it's pretty large companies that are heading up those movements because they've got the funds to be able to fund the university. Australia, I'm hoping that we will be able to have a little bit of a shift, and the clinical aromatherapists will start to be regarded again. I feel that there's it's almost as if the groundswell and the excitement that took place with the MLMs is potentially petering out a little bit, and people are back to asking questions again because there is enough information or misinformation, and people can see that there's misinformation out there, so they are starting to question and hopefully seeking the advice of professionals. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I can't. Again, when I was in Australia, I wasn't involved in. I didn't know about essential oils. I didn't have an interest at that time. I was working in the film industry in South Melbourne, and totally many years ago. So I wasn't sure what it was like, and it was only the doTERRAs of the world and Young Living, I think, is the other ones that kind of crept in the UK when I was. That's when I first kind of learnt about them. But I have had friends that do use doTERRA oils back in Melbourne, and I kind of I don't judge them. I just, how did you get into that? And again, it was the usual kind of attacked for the multi-level marketing point of things, the salespeople really. So yeah, it's kind of it was a bit worrying to hear that it kind of moved into the industry in Australia a bit, but then again, it's everywhere from what I gather now anyway. So it doesn't.
And I think, I work now very much in the spa industry, so I create a range of bespoke products that are used in spas, primarily in the treatment. So I've got a beautiful list of clientele, and I create signature scents for them, and they're then used in the treatments in the spas. And a large majority of what I do is education with the spa therapists. Now, spa therapists know a little bit about aromatherapy. They know a little bit about essential oils. I really take a lot of time to train them and speak to them about ethics, sustainability, chemistry, safety, and constantly bring their awareness. So I'm hoping that through conversations, they're only one conversation can kind of spark off a whole heap of other conversations, and whether that's with me or with those therapists questioning what they're hearing from other people or from their friends, they can go, well, hey, I've heard this from somebody who's qualified. Like I said, I feel like the big momentum has happened with that, and it's now starting to peter out because people are realising that unless they work their absolute butts off, they can't necessarily make a lot of money, and everybody's done it now. Everybody's, bought their kit, spent a lot of money and gone, oh gosh, this is a lot harder than what I actually thought it was going to be. So
yeah, exactly. They get sucked into that, don't they?
Yeah, and it's a real shame because from a sustainability perspective, it is a shame to consider that people are buying all of these products. They're not infinite resources. So, that's something that I hope to talk to people about and do talk to people about quite a lot, is the sustainability of oils.
Yeah, no, exactly. That's a huge topic that is really big at the moment, isn't it? It started off when I first learned about sandalwood, being endangered, and many years ago, of course, and now it's spread into a lot of other oils. And where you live in Australia is a pretty amazing part of the world. One of my favourites, and I'm not just saying that because I emailed you and told you, my love of northern Wales. But around that area, it's one of the most fertile parts of Australia for growing. And is there a lot of distillation of herbs in your area around there? Because I'm just assuming that there would be, maybe.
There are a few farms about. Greg Trevina, have you heard of Greg? He's essentially Australia, so he does make Australian essential oils and has presented at Botanica with his what he calls Byron Bay Rose, which is a Leptospermum personae subspecies. Beautiful, beautiful oil. If you can get your hand on that, do. It's expensive, but it's just exquisite. So there's quite a few. I mean, we've got tea tree in abundance here. We've got lemon myrtle in abundance. So, quite a lot of the myrtles are grown around this area as well. And a few of my suppliers have contracts with individual farmers. So it's not necessarily that person's doing the distilling, but the bigger suppliers will come in and do the distilling for them. Yeah.
Okay. Is that something you do?
I don't distill yet. I was supposed to be jumping over to New Zealand about a month ago to do some training with somebody over there, but that didn't eventuate. So that's something that I hope to do, but more not from a commercial perspective, just to understand the plants and to understand the oils in a deeper way. I feel like that's the gap in my knowledge. One of the gaps in my knowledge, and it's just that hands-on, and it'd be really cool to just be able to grow some plants in my garden. I've got an acre of land here that eventually over time we're hoping to have an aromatic garden and herbal garden, so it'd be super cool just to be able to go and pick off an abundance of leaves and do a little small distillation and play around with it. So not yet, but I just think that that's such a cool thing to be able to do.
Yeah, no. It's definitely a dream of mine one day to get into distillation with a few, even one or two separate herbs, and just for your own knowledge, just to learn how to do it, because I think it kind of rounds off your understanding as a therapist. Starting off treating, going back to where it came from, if that makes any weird sense as well.
Alchemical process as well. There's something really beautiful about taking a plant and transforming it effectively into something else, and it's the medicine that we use as aromatherapists. That's our tool. So to understand that alchemy process, it just gives you a deeper understanding. I think I've seen plenty of distillation, I just haven't actually done it myself, and I'm on these groups on Facebook, the artisan distillers, and it doesn't seem like it's an easy thing to do. So I'm super keen when I'm able to go back to New Zealand, which is looking like it's going to be sometime in the future now, to get over and do that little private workshop with Jill Mulvaney from Alembics New Zealand, who's amazing. She does a lot of really cool work. So, we're pretty blessed to have some great people around us, in this area. Yeah.
Oh, is there a lot of in again where you live, in your part of the world? There is there a bit of a community, a little aromatherapy or herbal, like holistic world there?
There is, to a degree. In terms of aromatherapy, not really. I mean, I've got my friends and my peeps within my area. Debbie Atterby is an hour away from me, and Greg's doing his thing. So if I ever need some assistance from Greg, he'll always help me out. Australia is a little interesting like that. It's not. It's getting better in terms of community, but there's still not a really strong aromatherapy community. And again, I believe that it's because of how things have changed recently. We used to have a really strong association, but now you don't need to be qualified. There's no point being qualified. So the associations are starting to have less people. So, all of these things limit that ability to have community. I've got some, great people that I connect with who live locally, who are perfumerists, and, we have lots of mutual respect. And, if I've run out of something, I can go, hey, have you got this? Can I grab some of this weekend so I can finish doing what I'm doing, and I'll replace it, which is really awesome. But it's a small community. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Well, hopefully it'll grow over time. We have another question here. What are your thoughts on the use of endangered species in essential oils?
So my thoughts on that, we need to be really careful. So I'm very lucky to be able to work with Callie Ablard from the Ambient Institute. I'm the Australian ambassador, so it's something I'm pretty passionate about. In my work as a cosmetic chemist, when I'm developing for other brands, I won't work with brands who are not interested in coming from a sustainable point of view. So again, that comes down to education. I do have conversations with clients about where they're sourcing their oils from, and I guess the thing is just understanding that supply chain and really understanding who your suppliers are. Sadly, if you're buying in bulk from these large companies, you really aren't able to follow up on where that supply chain is due to privacy. I try and avoid using any endangered species in any product that's going to be going out to the commercial market. I think that's really important because we just don't have the resources unless I've got that guarantee. You mentioned sandalwood earlier. Australia is doing great things for East Indian sandalwood. We've got some beautiful product coming out now. But sadly, our West Australian sandalwood is now becoming an endangered species, and not because the wood's endangered, because there's a little parasitic marsupial that's really important for the spreading of the seeds of the West Australian sandalwood, and that animal is endangered, so they're not spreading the seeds as much. So again, the work that these really big companies like Santanol and Quintus that they're doing to use cultivated sandalwood is awesome. So I hope that's answered that question.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. I agree totally with you from my point of view. Funny, I met the guys at Quintinez last month at the Shanghai Aromatherapy Expo, and based in WA, and it was great having a chat with them, how they're cultivating the sandalwood out there and regenerating the forests, and how they're doing it. So that was really interesting. So I agree totally. It is a bit of a issue that I've noticed here as well, like that the synthetics kind of definitely infiltrating the market, and you've got to be really careful I find here anyway, there's a lot of, I shouldn't say dodgy product, that sounds really disrespectful, but a lot of product that's, I just got to be really careful of what's out there on the market, because there is a lot of product, but some of it isn't always the best. I've bought a few bottles that just definitely, you just smell it a mile away, just totally synthetic. So that is creeping in, and I know it's creeping in other parts of the world as well, in the UK and definitely the US as well. Like, I know that they've had the same issue there.
Yeah, and again, it's knowing your supplier. It always comes down to that, and trusting your supplier. I've had some interesting conversations recently with perfumerists, and that there are some really awesome perfumery brands who are starting to use more synthetic products, say in terms of sandalwood. These big companies like Firmenich and Givaudan, they have all of the budget and resources at their hands. They are creating these sandalwood type synthetics, and a lot of indie they're not synthetics, they're isolates, so they are still technically classed as a natural product, but a lot of brands are actually turning to those type of ingredients as a way to get past this sustainability issue. And let's face it, if you want really good sandalwood oil, the best is 70 years old. At the moment in Australia, we're getting stuff that's between 12 and 15 years old, because it's a reasonably new industry. So I'm always questioning, it's that fine line between going with something that's completely natural or something that's a really good quality product that might be an isolate that has actually been created to help preserve and protect that plant, sandalwood, for example. It's a fine line there, but I think that's different to what you're saying, though, where there is, there's a lot of product out there that isn't, that's being sold as natural, that's being sold, for example, as sandalwood. I'm probably assuming oud is another one that's being adulterated. It is a little bit different, but I think that if it's done well, then it can actually be a really good solution for a large commercial product.
Yeah, particularly that's the argument, not the argument, the debate with perfumers, isn't it? Really, in that sense that they kind of think as long as it works, hey, not hurting anyone, etc.
To me, it has to have heart, and it's not just about the smell. It's the energy that's behind it. I really want to work with high vibrational products. These plants have a vibration behind them, and something that's been isolated, reconstituted, it doesn't have life force anymore. But of course, if you're a big commercial operation, you want the best product that you can get for the cheapest amount possible. So I get it.
Yeah. On that note of energies and other things kind of coming into aromatherapy, have you also studied any other holistic treatments that you might incorporate into your aromatherapy? Like, it's a question I ask everyone because it always seems to be maybe something like Reiki or reflexology or something else, or Thai massage, for example. Have you incorporated any of those other therapies into aromatherapy?
So I studied the Swiss reflex treatment through the Penny Price Academy, which is so cool. That's an awesome technique, and I fell in love with reflexology because of that, and incredibly effective. Not many people are doing that, and I think more people should, because it's completely mind-blowing. I did my Reiki when I was in my teens, and I think I've always leaned on that holistic side from a really young age. I started yoga when I was 15, and then spent 10 years with an apprenticeship with a yogacharya, so a master of yoga, kind of in my 20s. So I incorporate a multitude of different techniques into what I do. If I've got people on the table, it's I don't tell people I do Reiki. It just comes through. You know, I never purposely do a Reiki treatment anymore. But I'm moving into a way of incorporating my essential oils with my yoga and deep meditation techniques. I really love and respect the work of Felicity Warner, and have done some studies with her. So connecting, you know, into that really deep kind of esoteric element of the oils and combining that with different yoga techniques has been mind-blowing. So that's stuff that I'm doing. But when I used to have people on the table, I'd take them, you know, into a kind of a shavasana, a deep shavasana, and using inhalations before I'd start treating them, and using my crystal bowls. But it's a rare occasion that I have my hands on bodies anymore. You know, I'm more developing product and consulting to other businesses. Yeah, okay. The body kind of gave.
No, that's right. No, it all works together. Even the theory behind it, I think, as well. You know, the training that you would have had in yoga and Reiki and essential oils, it comes out now, I'm sure, in your practice now and in your work life, what you're doing. So I know what you mean, absolutely, because I'm in the same boat. I don't do a lot of hands-on at all now, so I know what you mean.
Yeah, and it all comes together, and I think now, although I've been doing a lot more product development and consulting, you know, the world needs as much chill as it can get. So it's time to get back in incorporating the oils into meditation techniques, and, you know, working with more than just one people, I think for me is where I'm at now. You know, getting a group together, doing a beautiful session, and sending people on their way, hopefully feeling, you know, calm and centered is really important.
That's beautiful. No, I agree totally. With digressing back to oils just quickly again, and I always ask this to everyone around this time of the chat. What are some of your favourite oils or blends that you may have? I know it's a difficult question, but
I'm glad you said some, because when some people ask me that question, I liken that to asking them to choose my favourite child, which I only have one, so that's a pretty easy. Is listening, you are my favourite. So Rose is that's my heart medicine for myself. I love the history and the culture and the connection to Mary Magdalene with Rose. You just can't get anything better. And, you know, I was studying in Provence with Rhiannon, and we got taken to a distillation facility in Provence, and it was just, I mean, I've never had as a magical moment in my life. You know, just the setting, you know, looking across the mountain and the rain coming in, and the lid on the still was just being put down, and we had a picnic in the distilling shed, and the aroma. I mean, I was just sobbing. It's one of the most beautiful moments of my life. I mean, lavender, French lavender. I'm pretty snobby when it comes to my lavender. You know, there's others, but French will always have my heart. I have a deep love affair, gosh, with all the really expensive ones. Neroli, jasmine. I love sandalwood. And I'm really liking vetiver at the moment.
Yeah.
And that's kind of new for me. I think, you know, vetiver, when I used to smell it, was just dirty ashtrays. But I'm really in that deep grounding that I get from vetiver. And another one of my all-time favourite oils is laurel.
Okay.
I love that essential oil. You know, if you want to be boosting, for me, if you want to boost the immune system, I'd much prefer to have the aroma of bay laurel around me than tea tree. Yeah, I'm not a fan of tea tree.
Yeah, no, I must admit bay laurel's one of my favourites as well for, awakening, getting my head focused, using on, pimples, that kind of thing as an antimicrobial. So yeah, no, I agree totally.
It's an awesome oil, and I think it's a really underrated oil. It's quite interesting that it's not one that people often turn to, but I just think it's ace. I mean, and even from an aromatic kind of perfumery perspective, it's really interesting as well to put into blends. Yeah, and I mean, like I said before, what Greg's doing, Greg Trevina with the Byron Bay Rose, Australian Rose, they're absolutely exquisite. So if you can get your hands on those, do. And Greg's a great person to watch because he releases really interesting and new ingredients, new essential oils that nobody's doing. So it's always fun to watch what he's up to.
Okay, no, that's something I'll do for myself, that's for sure. So I want to keep an eye on, Byron Bay or a rose, that's for sure.
Yeah, and it's not technically a rose; it's a leptospermum, but it's really, really sweet and floral.
Okay, wow, I can't wait to try that one day. And now, again, I always have, with the good, there's always the bad, if I could use that expression. What are some that you might not like, or mightn't get along with, or you just don't bond with?
Melissa.
Okay.
Yeah. I just can't create a connection with that oil at all. And I try really hard, but I just have such a strong aversion to Melissa. Maybe I haven't smelled the right one. I actually don't like clary sage.
Okay.
But I have a clary sage absolute, which is divine. So I don't like the steam distilled essential oil of clary. And again, I keep going back to it because it's one of those oils that everybody loves. I don't. I love the plant. She's a beautiful plant. But the aroma just doesn't do it for me. And I don't like tea tree. Thanks.
Maybe it's a diversion because like you, I imagine the same as me as a kid. It was just, our mums probably overused it on us. It was like, that's what I got memories of. It was the only, growing up with an essential oil tea tree, I think it's in every kid's household in Australia, isn't it? And, you got a sting or a bite. It's like, here's tea tree, here's some tea tree. So the smell of it I can think back to when I was it's one of my earliest memories is tea tree. So maybe it's just too much of it for you.
I think, again, it's finding that alternative. I use Palmarosa instead. So, if I want, I find that it's effective. It's a different chemistry, of course, but it's still effective for that type of thing. So, I just find something completely different. But no, definitely tea tree.
No, that's interesting. Being an Aussie as well, it's kind of, it's not what I would have expected you to say, but I understand why. Absolutely. Sorry.
Ones, I love a lot of the Australian ones, but there's a lot of medicinal kind of aromas with the Australian essential oils. So they're kind of a little bit, sometimes they can be a little bit more of a challenge to work with if I'm trying to bring them into a spa, for example. So I don't tend to turn to them as much. I kind of like those florally, beautiful, soft ones that take you on a little bit more of a journey. If I'm treating something, like something bacterial, great, but perhaps that's the connection for me with the Australian plants, is that I use them more as a medicine than for that kind of beautiful combination of therapeutics with aesthetics.
Yeah, no, I agree totally. That's one thing I have, now that you're mentioning it, with eucalyptus. It reminds me of football locker rooms as a kid, that deep heat smell. And I used to hate, and I never used eucalyptus in anything really. And even when I was in the UK in treatment, I wouldn't go to it for muscle pains or anything like that. I'll try other ones, but I kind of have an aversion to eucalyptus. So my tea tree is eucalyptus in that sense, that it just has those connotations of schoolboy locker rooms,
That's wintergreen for me. As soon as I smell wintergreen, my body immediately thinks it's doing a deep tissue massage. That's some weird.
How are things now, off the subject of essentialism, but how are things with COVID now in your part of the world? Are you all okay with getting out and about and around, or?
I am, and my village and area has been pretty lucky throughout the whole ordeal. We've only had one day of, they weren't even one weekend, of lockdown. Right at the get-go, we had restrictions, but as you know, I live in one of the most stunning places in the world, so restriction meant I could still go to the beach. It's nothing like what my friends down in Melbourne have had to go through, or Sydney. So I'm landlocked. I can't even go to Queens. I can go to Queensland, but the restrictions, it's actually more anxiety inducing, because if you get pulled over, I'm allowed to go, but I can't get home to WA to see my mum, and I can't get to Melbourne to see my son. So, it's stressful, but there's people that are doing it way tougher than what I am, and ever have through this whole ordeal. So I feel extraordinarily lucky. And my heart breaks for what other people have experienced and do experience through this, whole time. And Australia has been through hell, but in terms of, caseload, we haven't had the same as other countries. So, and that's due to the really heavy, lockdowns and restrictions that we've had. And, I feel, globally, it's just been devastating. People's mental health are, just taking an absolute battering, and that's probably, going to take a lot longer see the outcome of than even, the virus itself. It's I don't think that people even necessarily recognise you kind of come out of that trauma state and then you just get on with it. But everyone's on edge. And gosh, everyone's on edge in Australia at the moment. It's I've especially jumped onto Instagram to join you this week because I've had to, delete everything again because it's just far too stressful for me. And I think a lot of people are feeling the same. It's just being blasted at you. We actually have just instigated a no COVID rule in our house. We're not allowed to talk about it as of this week because it's just like, oh my gosh, talking about no more COVID. We just have a blanket rule now, and if someone says something, it's like, shh, you've broken the rule. Yeah, just to take care of you.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you taking the time to reconnect with the social media so we could have this chat today, because I do understand I disconnected a lot from watching Channel 9 News or Channel 7 News or ABC in Australia, and then even Channel 4 in the UK, and every time I watch it, it's just like something, oh my God, it's just doing my head in kind of thing, so it does bring you down. So I can completely...
The Australian story is one thing, but if you're just tuning into those channels, we're not even hearing anything about the rest of the world. Like, it's so, and we are a global community, and we're not just Australia. This little isolated island that's literally blocked off from the rest of the world at the moment. It makes it difficult. So you have to choose really, really wisely, I think, where you're getting your information from, because it can be very, very, kind of blinkered. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, I agree totally. Well, look, I'll leave you to finish off your evening now, but I want to thank you so much for taking the time to talk with me today, and with all, with our guests that have joined. Is it okay if I pop your details down in the virtual box below, so if people want to check you out over?
Yeah. Thank you to everyone who joined.
No, well, thanks again, and we'll keep in touch. I know that we'll, drop you a line whenever you back on Instagram, and we'll be in touch. But thanks again, Prashanti, for taking the time, and I hope you can get to see your mum real soon over in WA.
Yeah. Take care.
All right, take care. Thanks again. Bye-bye. Bye.